Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is David from Daveden Web Dev, and on this channel I like to talk about all things WordPress, especially about accessibility and dynamic data. If you can see me properly, if you can hear me, please let me know in the comments so that I know that the sound is good enough, because I know my sounds are usually quite low. So let me know in the comments if you can see me, you can hear me. And the topic of today is we'll just be checking out accessibility. So I'll be looking at a demo website that has a few accessibility issues, and we'll be running like a set of quick tests to see how we can improve the accessibility of the website. The website was built with Elementor. It's not a real website, it's a template, a demo template that I saw on the web, and I just converted it. So, hi, Aina. Thanks for joining in. Please, hope the sound is okay. And we'll just go into it. So, Caripos, thanks for joining in. Let me know in the comments which tools do you use for like your accessibility testing, because I know there are a lot of automated tools we can use. Everybody has their own preferences, so let me know in the comments what's your own preference. For context, we have things like the Wave, we have things like Axe Dev Tools, we have I think something called Silk Tide. I've never used it. Then there is the one by Equalize Digital called Accessibility Checker. There are so many of them, so let me know in the comments which one do you prefer. Okay. Yeah, let me pull that up. A site is a site. Yeah, a site is a site. But then there are always ways you can, make it better. Because there are some sites you go in and the moment you see your site, you want to run away. And there are other sites you go in and you spend lots of time, going through. So there are all. Okay, so I can see Caripos says he uses Silk Tide. I've never actually tried it out. So maybe I'll try it out one of these days. But I hear a lot of people talking about Silk Tide. The one I use a lot, I have a lot of them that I use. I just go through all of them. And for me, well, the one I prefer is I use everything. So I do a lot of testing with a lot of tools, because I found out that all of these tools, they work based on some predefined like constants. So sometimes one tool will like flag something as an error. The other tool will miss it out because the other tool is not really built. It didn't like put that into its own database or something like that. And there are just so many things that go into it. So I don't really so much use Wave anymore, but I use things like the Accessibility Checker by Equalize Digital. I just install that on the website and I use that to test. Then for extensions, I use the Axe Dev Tools. And I use one called, let me see if I can pull it up. Let's just switch to my screen. And we'll see the ones that I use. So my extension lists are, so I have one that's called Accessibility Insights for the Web. Then the Axe Dev Tools. For color contrast checking, I use this color contrast checker. Then I use this headings map a lot as well. What else? There's also Tabali if you want to check the tab focus, how the structure of the tab is, so that you know that the tabbing order is in sequence. So I use that as well. Then what else? I use, yeah, and that's basically what I use in terms of like Chrome extensions. So that's what I'll be using. And the sites we're building is just a demo template. And this is the site. We're just going to be going through this site and seeing some ways we can improve the site. Yeah, I have so many extensions for different things because I found out that every tool has what it is better for. No one tool can do everything. It's the same way with like when you're designing websites, you don't just rely on only the page builder and say that's the only plugin you install. Sometimes if you want something better for your form, you use a form plugin. I wouldn't rely on the form plugin that comes with any page builder. Then we have so many other things that you may want to like add to optimize your website. So those are the kind of things you think about. So that's why I always have so many tools in hand. I do multiple tests and we come up with a solution in the end. So yeah, so that's, let me go through the website again. So basically this is just the website we are building, or we're not building the website, just going to be going through some like checks that I would just do, some quick checks I usually do, and that would be that. Okay. Yeah, I think I can plan for that to create a Google Sheet. But yeah, so in the website, let's just go through this website. In the website, we have the header section, we have the hero section, then we have this about us section, we have an achievements section, I guess, then the services and testimonials. What else? We have latest blog, and then we have a footer. So how will I normally go through the website? The very first thing that I do is just to like I've done now, just go through the website visually, and all I'll do is just check like for things like, are the colors looking like presentable? Is there enough spacing, enough white spaces? Is the text looking small enough? And other things like that. Just do a random check to see just how good it is before I even start like doing any major tests. I just do some basic testing, look at it visually, then I start to compare all the components. So I'll say, okay, what are the components that can be clicked on? So I'll like list them out as, okay, this is like in the navigation. I'll put that down, write it down somewhere. This is the navigation. Then it has a carousel. I'll write it down, the carousel. Then it has some buttons. I'll write down, or the links, write them down. Just getting a feel of exactly what is on that page. So that gives you an idea. So once I've done that, then that will now give me an idea of, okay, so those components, how are they supposed to work? Because I don't know everything, so I'll now start using that to compare with like the patterns and the templates that already exist in the WCAG guidelines and the W3C patterns. So for that's for later, but the first one I will just list all of those things down. So I'll say, okay, we have all of these sections, and that's what we're doing now. So let's go through it. So, yeah. Okay, so we have a question. So for color gradients, I think that generally they are harder to see. Basically, it's harder to see text on in fact, it's harder to see text on anything. So text on images, text on gradients, they become harder to see. So you have to like test the contrast as much as possible. So because how gradients work sometimes is that some parts will be light, some parts will be dark. So you have to now really test the image or the text on the image to see if the text like is visible across all of those patterns, and try to not have too many things going on in the background, because when there's too much going on in the background and it's hard to see the text. So let me just quickly show you an example of what I mean. So I'll switch to this now. And so the first thing you do is, because before we even continue, usually all of these accessibility checker tools, they don't know how to check text on image or text on background color. So when you have like linear gradient background, or you have or an image in the background, those accessibility checkers, they don't actually check it. They just assume. So what they do is they'll assume a background color, and then they will test the text over that, on top of that background. So it's not really the linear gradient that they're testing the thing about. That's why automated tools are handicapped. They're not, they can only go so far. So let me see if any of the tools will flag any issues. So we'll start with a simple tool like, let me go with the accessibility insights, and I'll just say automated checks. Okay, so let me see if I can open it in a new tab, because right now it will be checking all of these toolbar, which comes from the admin bar. Then let's see, it will give you all of the issues. So this one, it says the links don't have discernible text. That's one nice thing about this checker. You can easily see all of the errors. So let's see if there's any other errors it finds. And as you can see, the only errors it found through the automated checks are just links don't have discernible text. Then links don't have discernible text. That's the only thing it found as an error. Whereas I can say that there are some other minor errors that are on this page. So that's why I don't really always fully trust any accessibility checker tool. Then let me turn that off. Then I'll use Equalize Digital's version. And it says, okay, this one shows that there are multiple errors. Ignore this color of the buttons. This is not the actual color that comes with the buttons, but because of the template changed the settings in the Elementor site settings, that now affects every button on the page. So that's why every button on the page gets padding and some colors. That comes from Elementor site settings. But yeah, so we have this. So let's see what the styles are. The first one is, okay, there's area hidden somewhere. Then they said the elements was not okay. Then empty image alt text, incorrect heading order. Yeah, this one picks out more errors. So it's telling me exactly what the errors are. Image empty alternate text. That means the images don't have alternate text. Then it's now for you to decide if you want to go ahead with the suggestion or not. So I'm just going to be showing you the errors. So alternate text, alternate text. So mostly all of the images don't have any alternate text. I think those are the major errors it's finding. Then incorrect heading order. Yeah. So those are basically then empty links as well. So those are links that have just pound sign. Then at least one that I know people like using a lot is that tool that's called Wave. So let me see if it is installed here. Oh, where is it? Wave. I know it's here, so. Or was it removed? Manage extensions. Oh. Ah, I see. Okay, I think Wave was removed, right, in the latest version of Chrome, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I have it on my older browser, but the new browser doesn't have. Let me see if I can find it. Discover. Oh no, it's there. Didn't I install it? Add to Chrome. So I guess maybe something happened and then it uninstalled the Wave. Okay, so we have Wave. Let me try and use that. And we test, because I think Wave gives you a more visual look. So let's activate Wave. And the same thing. So it gives you those errors in a more visual way. So we have that the linked image is missing an alternative text. So what that means is there are 4 types of images on a page, which let me give you a link so you can read it for yourself. So this is a tutorial about images. There are 5 variants of images. There are images that are called informative images. These are the general images that we have. Those are images that provide meaning on their own. Then we have decorative images. These are more of like images that don't give you any value to the page. So it is providing more of noise than actual information. Then we have functional images. these are mostly images that are links. So whenever an image is used as a link or a button, then you have to read through this document. It will explain how you should provide alt text for that image. So it gives you examples. So if the image alone is used as a link logo, then what do? You simply write the alt text as the visible text / the name of the page you are going to. So that is W3C home page. So that is where the alt text of the image for any linked image should be telling you where the link is going to, not describing the image itself. So so whenever an image is used as a link, then the alt text of that image should describe where the link is going to. So in this case, it's going to the home page of W3C. So that's why they call it W3C home. And usually, you also want to attach the visible text into that alt text as well. So in case there's any visible text, if it's just a logo that doesn't have any visible characteristic of text, then just describe the location. But if the image has visible text, then try to incorporate that visible text into the link, the alt text of the link. Then, on the other hand, if there is an image and just directly after the image there is a text that describes the link, so let's say there's the text and the image, then you use a blank alt text on the image so that the image will be ignored and it's only the link that will be like explained to the user whenever the screen reader user is using it. So a lot of things that we have already, like any question you may have when you're building your website. That's why I say the first thing you do when you're building the website is, after you've like created your design in Figma and everything, then just literally take all of those components in the design, then search through any of these like pattern libraries, like the W3C pattern libraries. They will give you an explanation of how best to tackle that feature. So that component, what is the best way to tackle the component? And that's how you get an accessible website. But yeah, so that's just a brief introduction to show you like how you can easily compare. So you see an image, there's an error, then you can just go to the W3C documentation. It will explain with examples what are your success criterion and what are your advisory notes to say, okay, this is how you solve the image. But yeah, that's just going on a long way. So now let's just start trying to solve the problems as we go along. So let me switch back. And yeah, let me close this and we'll start. So let me deactivate the wave. Okay, so we have our page. So the first thing I like to always, like I said, the first thing I do is I have listed out all of the components in the page, how they are structured. Then I'll now go through like the page layout. So one thing you may not know, that you see the title at the top bar of the page. That title is actually important and it should actually describe what the page is all about. Everything combined together helps your page to be understood better by users and by screen reader users. Well, I mean by screen reader users, by regular users, by the search engines and everything. So everything is all combined together. Thank you. So the first thing you do is now you check that the alt text, the site title is accurate and describes your page. And the easiest way to do that is just inspect your source code. So I'll say view page source, and generally we just go to, let me put line wrap and zoom in a little bit. And basically this is the title. So whenever anybody goes with a screen reader and lands on your page, the first thing they will hear when they get to your page is the title. So to tell them Digitize Digital Marketing Agency, then that they know, okay, they're on the right page. So they know that, that's why if they're on the Google page, they know they're on Google's page, before they even get to the H1 or anything. The first thing that is read is the title of the page. So make sure your title describes your page. The second thing you have to look out for is that there is a language. So let me just search for the language, and the language is usually on the HTML element, which you can see here, HTML lang equal to NGB. So this automatically tells any assistive technology what language that they are supposed to expect on that page. It also tells tools like Google Translate, okay, this is the current language and we need to translate it to whatever language that the user is, like their native language or whatever. So these two things are very important. Make sure the title is accurate and make sure the language is also the correct language for that page. Okay, so once you have done that, those two things are done. The title of the page usually is done by your SEO plugin, so like your Rank Math, your Slim SEO, and all of those plugins. Then the next thing you do after that is, let me zoom back out, is that I like to now see the structure of my page. So first I've gotten the language is out of the way, the title is out of the way. Now let me see if my page is properly structured. The way the structure is that, consider when you are in a house. Whenever you go to any house at all, you get through the front door and you immediately know that, okay, this house is supposed to have a living room area, it's supposed to have a kitchen, it's supposed to have a toilet, it's supposed to have a bathroom, and so on. So some of those things, that almost every house has those things, and that's down, you can easily locate those things easily, because the bathroom is not going to be placed inside the living room area. All of those things are structured out, compartmentalized, basically. So that's the same thing with websites. Your website will also be structured in a way that it's easy for anybody to know where each content goes. Usually, we start with a header. That header has like a site logo and the navigation, the search, and maybe some banners as well. But basically, it's site logo. That's the most important thing that comes in the header. Then you might have the navigation in the header, or you can have the navigation just after the header. It all depends on how you want to structure your page, but those components are they should be there. So basically the second thing you do is just check that your page structure is in order. So let's see how we can do that easily using a tool. So I'll be using the Accessibility Insights to help me visualize where all of the structure of the page is. Hey, Toby, thanks for joining in. How are you doing today? How has your knowledge of accessibility improved? Is it now 100% or is it still in the 50% range? So yeah, the tool I like to use to check the structure of the page is called Accessibility Insights for the web, because that gives me more of a visual indication. Sometimes when you first open it, it will take you to a page like this, where you can do the fast pass, then you can do other guided tests, because accessibility testing, automated tools can only go so far. So these tools, what they do is they first do an automated test, then they will guide you through a manual test, so you can go through the manual testing. But what I want to use now is the ad hoc tools, and I want to see the landmark regions. So I'll click on that, and that just gives me an idea of that everything in the page is structured properly. So, so we can have, for example, you see, we have the navigation, we have the main landmark, and that's it. So you can already see that two things are missing, because there should always be a header. Right now, there is no header. So we should have a header, then the main landmark is just covering the entire page, and then we have the navigation landmark that's called menu. Then there is no footer landmark, so this whole part of the page is missing. Another tool you can use to view these landmark regions is, let's get rid of that, okay, is headings map as well. So for now, we're not looking at the headings, we're looking at the landmarks. So let's go to landmark, and you see it tells us exactly what we have as landmarks here. We only have a navigation, which is called menu. We have the main landmark, which is called main, because there's actually, then we have the toolbar, which is basically from the WP admin bar, so we can ignore that one. So the other parts, the other kind of landmarks we need now are, we need a landmark for the header. That means this tool has now showed us that although we have a header visibly, but to assistive technologies and to like search engines, there is no header on this page. So we need to fix that. So that's the thing we now fix. We fix the landmark regions. So let's close this. Then to fix your landmark, if you're using Elementor Pro, you just go to your site header. It's called header. And all you have to do is the cog icon at the center of your page, click on it, and you now see HTML tag. Simply change that from a div to the appropriate landmark, which in this case is the header, and you press publish. That's all you need to do for your header landmark. Now if I come back to the page and let's go to the home page. Okay, and then we test again. So let me use the headings map again. And now you see we have the heading landmark, which is called banner. Then we have the navigation called menu. And that's another thing we need to fix. Usually the name menu, it can be ambiguous sometimes, because let's say you're on a restaurant website and someone tells you this is menu. The person who's out wondering, is it the menu navigation for navigating through the food items or the menu on the page? And that can be ambiguous. So rather than doing that, we can now give it another name which basically describes its role. So we can say, because we already have the role there called navigation, so what best describes, like gives you further information about that role, you can say something like primary. So when you say primary navigation, then the person knows that, okay, that is the main navigation on the page. We can have other navigations like your breadcrumbs, your table of contents. You can have the navigation in the footer. So you can like basically distinguish them based on their purpose on the page. The purpose of this one, we already know the role is that it's a navigation. The purpose of that navigation is that it's the primary navigation that we're using on the page. So to change that, let me see if that is working in this page. So I'll come to the WordPress menu, and you can see it tells us what is the menu name. All you have to do is just change the name to something like primary, or you can say main. That one might be ambiguous sometimes, so just say primary, because primary is less ambiguous. So say primary, and when we come back to our page, let me just open the page in a new tab, and we go back to our headings map. And then you preview it. Now you see it's called primary navigation. The other one is called the banner, which is I think it was in the old days, you know, in the days of publishing, there was the banner, and so that's why they just gave it that name as banner, and then they left it at that. So that's why it's always, the header is called the banner, the footer is called the content info landmark. So those are the landmark regions you need to remember. So we have fixed two things now. We've now given it structure that the top of the page is the header. Inside the header, we have the primary navigation. Then we have the main content area. If you click on it, it tells you exactly where the thing is. So this is the primary, then the main content area. And finally, we need this portion. This portion right now is not having any label or any structure. So we need to add a structure to it. So for that, you can simply go to the site footer. So let me go to my theme builder and just switch to the site footer. So the site footer, okay, I didn't label it. It's always a good idea to label your templates so you know exactly what the template is doing. So for the same way we did with the site header, we'll do it with the site footer. You come to your settings, that's for your footer settings. Then you head over to the left sidebar where it says HTML tag. Change it from a div to a footer. Okay. Then I may also want to change the name to make it easier to, this is a label for you as an administrator, it doesn't affect anything on the front end. So I'll change it to site footer, publish that, and we'll continue with our structure. So let's refresh this page. And now you see the structure is complete. So we have our banner. Then within the banner, we have a primary navigation. Then we have the main content area. And finally, the content info landmark. The other landmark that may exist on your page are things like the search. So if you have a search bar, usually the search bar is also somewhere at the top. So it will either be in the header or it can be just below the header. So maybe, but usually it's either in the header or just directly below the header, something like that. So it's easy for the user to search. And I would strongly advise you to add searches to your page, especially like your blog posts, because that now makes it easier for people to navigate your website. Okay, so we have finished with the landmark regions, which is the structure. The next thing we need to also look out for is what we call the skip to content. Because now we have given your page structure that we can easily find the structure on the page, but usually on a page, users already know that there is this like header region. Whenever a user is coming to your page, most of the time, especially when they're coming from like a Google search, they want to just go straight to the main content area of your page. They don't really care about your logo anymore, your navigation, and all of that. All they're just looking for is, I want to get the content in the page. So to make it easy for your users to get directly to the content, we add that skip link. So what that skip link does is we just add an ID to our main content area, and the skip to content will be a button that is at the very top of the page. Let me show you how I can get access to it. So to avoid all this toolbar from the WordPress, let me open a new tab. Okay, so if you're a keyboard user, you can follow along with me now. What you do first on your page is press either Control or Command L. It takes you to the search bar, and then start tabbing. Just press the tab key. Tab 1, 2, 3 to go through all of those, your tab at the top of your page. After that, it will now go into your page, or like the top bar of the default Chrome toolbar. Once it goes through that, it takes you straight to the first item on the page. The first item on the page should be your skip to content, because the benefit of that skip to content is, let's say I don't use that skip to content, I keep pressing tab. So I would have to go through all of these links before I can get to maybe a link in the main content area, which is the Explore Now link. So it has made me to like stress myself going through. Imagine having like links with lots of drop downs. That means I would have to go through like 100 drop downs, which let me even show you right now. The MDN Docs website, that is the perfect example. So imagine I'm trying to get to, let me open something that I like, maybe at layers. Okay, so imagine I'm trying to like get to a link in this content area. Hi Lex, thanks for joining in. So I'm trying to get to like this link called CSS specificity, because every other thing on the page, those ones repeat across multiple pages. So I don't really care about those links. The main links I'm caring about is the links that are in the main content area. So let's say I'm trying to get to this link. I'll now press the Ctrl L. That's Ctrl L. And start pressing tab key. So imagine there was no skip to main content link now. I would have to go through this. So I'll keep tabbing. I would have to keep tab. Just watch how many times I have to keep tabbing. So I will have to go through all of the sidebar. It will take me ages before I actually because it will go through this left sidebar, all of those links in the left sidebar, then to go through all of the links in the right sidebar before it gets to the main content area. By that time, my fingers are already feeling the pain. So instead of doing that, now I can just press Ctrl L again, then tab, click skip to main content, and then press the tab key. And I'm already in the main content area. I can press tab again. I'm in Cascade, CSS specificity. So see how fast it is to get to the links within the main content area, as opposed to having to tab through all of your links on your page. So that is the idea of accessibility is you're trying to improve the quality of life, or like the experience of your users. You don't want your users to be so stressed out just trying to access your page. So that's why we now have that thing, is the skip to content link. So press Ctrl L and press the tab key. Thankfully, I'm not in the US. So now when I press the Ctrl L, and now I'm skip to content. When I press the enter or key, I should now be in the content area, which you can see at the search bar. There is a hashtag content. That is like the standard that everybody uses. Then when I press the tab key now, it takes me directly to my explore down link. So it skips all of the irrelevant information at the top of the page, your sidebar and everything, and goes straight to the links within the content area. So in case you have like a form within the content area that the person wants to fill, like a contact form, they don't have to start tabbing through millions of links before they get to your contact form. They can simply access your contact form and fill it out. So that is it. So we're finished with testing out that skip to content link. One thing you must be aware of is sometimes the skip to content link will work in your home page, but in some of your other pages, like your blog post. Let's see if I have any blog post. Okay, I haven't designed a blog post, but what happens is that sometimes your blog posts or your archive pages, when you have used Elementor's theme builder to build those pages out, the skip to content no longer works in those pages. So you have to test it out always do the test first in your pages, so like your home page, your About Us page, or your other pages. Then also test out your templates. So your single post templates, your archive templates, your product templates. Make sure those templates are accessible. Then before you start worrying about the content within those areas. So first make sure that the template itself is accessible. So let me switch back and we can close this. So we have tested the structural elements and those ones are okay. The other thing you may want to pay attention to is you now have to start testing out the content. So you can test out the content to make sure that the content is now structured properly, because the main thing that people come to do in your website usually is to read content. So first of all, you check out visually, is my content like passing as much information as is needed per section, or are they just random content I'm just using to fill space? So you go through your content and see, okay, try to visualize it. And one tool I've also added on my website is a bookmarklet that just helps me to get rid of all of the styles. So now I can see exactly the content for what it is, rather than being like confused by the styling. So I can now read the content itself and see, is the content, sometimes I need to work on it to be in a like readable text area. Right now it just goes edge to edge, but let's say something like this, and you can now go through the page and say, okay, it will get rid of, so this is getting rid of every style. So you can now see that, does this actually make sense? This now looks like is a lesser heading than the next content. Then this is the text. Then we have some images. Then we have About Us, which looks like it's a smaller heading than the main content. Because right now I've removed the style. So this is now showing you the browser styles. So, yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks for joining in today. I really appreciate. So you just keep going through so you just like literally read through a page. That's how you now see if the headings are in order. You can now already see that if I'm reading this page, like without any of the styling, it will visually is telling me that these services we provide is a heading, but then this is not. So this is not really related to that heading. This heading now is not like following in structure. So let me refresh the page. And what I'll now do is use the headings map tool to now help me to visualize the headings in a more visual manner to see if the headings are following in order, because you need your headings to make sense and to follow in order. So let's go to the headings map, and now we go to the headings. And okay, let me refresh the page. Okay, yeah. So you can see it's already giving us some red signs to tell us that these headings are not in order. So we're starting with a H3 that says creative thinking. Then we go to a H1. Then next it goes to another H3 and so on. So if for whatever reason, let's just assume that you didn't have access to the page and all you had access to was a table of content, and you see a table of content like this that says creative thinking, then and things like, and this structure, does it really explain the page in the right order? Compare this now to, let me show you something like the W3C documentation. Let's say W3C, maybe even the, okay, let's just go through this. And okay, no, this is not enough. I need something bigger. So W3C WCAG 2.2, something with more content. Okay, so now compare that to a structure like this. Now with this kind of structure, don't you really already understand exactly what you are getting from the page? So you can see first we have the main, this is how a table of contents should look like. So first we have our page, then we're now in this, you can see how the table of content is. We have a perceivable, so we know, okay, we're in a section that is talking about perceivable. Then it tells us this is now, assume this is the H2 called perceivable. Under the H2 we now have text alternatives, time-based media, and adaptable. So those are direct subheadings under the perceivable. It's not, you can also look at it from the structure. Headings map is the same thing. So you can see how the structure is. See how nicely laid out it is, that you can easily understand. First we have the WCAG, which is the main heading. Then we have abstract. It's similar to how you have in when you're writing your science, like if you're a science, if you did science in like your university, you have those, your science projects or your dissertation. When you're writing your dissertation, you know how you structure your page in an orderly manner that somebody can just look at the table of contents and understand exactly what to expect in your whole website. That's the same way you should treat the headings. The headings provide information about what comes after them. Don't just use headings because something is bigger or smaller. That's when you put H3, H2. No. Try to use the headings in order. Then use CSS for styling. HTML is for content structure. CSS is for styling. Then JS is for animations. So that's how you think about your website. First start with the HTML structure should be in a logical order that when I read it like a book, I can understand it. Then you add some CSS styling to make things look nicer, to be more visually appealing. And finally, for interactions, you now add some JavaScript or some other HTML things. So basically that's the idea. So coming back to our page, see how nicely it's laid out. So we have to do the same thing for our page. We need it to be in a way that makes sense. So we can assume that this whole idea is the idea for that entire page. So this strategic thinking and so on is maybe the H1, then sometimes you could now put this creative thinking to be after it, and then you do some CSS to modify it. But that's just, you have to do it on a case-by-case basis. In the case of this section, what really describes this entire section is about us. So your H2, so basically the first thing is that this is what describes the entire page. The H1 is about strategic thinking, tangible results, and for businesses, I guess. Then under that, you now start having some sections. So the first section is your about us section, which is the entire section here, is the about us section. Then we have this kind of achievements. So this is maybe another section called the achievement section. Then our services is the next section. So that would be the H2, our services. Then this is just like a more like adding more description to the title, which is our services. So this is, in my case, I'll just put this as a strong tag or a paragraph tag, and this, our services, will be the heading. Then we can see that under our services, we now have the different services. So we have web design, mobile apps, and then digital marketing. Those are the 3 services that we have. And then we'll continue. So this one now, you could combine them together and then say the testimonials is the section heading, because I know people like to focus so much on SEO, but then the SEO, Google understands your page. So as long as you provide it a structural heading that Google can use to understand the entire page, Google will read through your entire content. So when the Google sees these testimonials as the H2, it understands that, okay, the entire page is talking about, this whole section is talking about the testimonials from the customers. So it can now continue reading the page. That's how I think about it. I don't know about you. What do you think? Yeah, okay, so I missed that question. So that's why, like I said, I just like to use multiple tools. All the tools all have they all have similar things that they do. You can get to the structure here and see the same thing you see that I showed with the headings map, with the structure of the header, the navigation, and so on. But it looks a bit nicer for me when I look at it in headings map, because like if you look at the headings map, compare this just tells us header, navigation, main, whereas with the headings map, sorry, wrong thing. Headings map, let me refresh the page. It gives you the name. So what is the name here? The name was primary, not just navigation, but the exact name that is read to a screen reader. Primary navigation, it tells you here. Same thing with the headings. It gives you this nice. So I just like the presentation better in headings map compared to Wave. So it's just a personal preference. But if you prefer using Wave, then use Wave. So it's not that you must use one tool. So just use the tool that is like better for you, and then work with that to do the accessibility check-in. Okay, so like I said, when we now get to this section, so latest blog, I think these are just, so basically I would say the latest blog is the heading. That's personally. So this is me saying, so you can give me your own opinions in the comments, and we'll all give our reasons together, because I'm not an expert. I'm a user like you. I'm a developer like you. So we all share ideas together. So then we also have, so this will now be the main heading for the section, latest blog, with a strong tag called latest blog posts and another paragraph tag. And finally, because the cards, they have information that also they have a heading and an excerpt. So that means this is a heading. If there was no excerpt, generally I would just not put this as a heading. I'll put it like a paragraph tag. But since there's an excerpt, I'll say this is a heading that describes the content that goes on in it. So this will now be H3s under the H2 of our latest blog. So for that, we can easily now start editing it. So I'll come back to my page, edit with Elementor. and we can start editing it. So I'm thinking this will be the H1. Then what I'll do is I'll just drop this one below it, because usually the way content is read in the order in the HTML. When you use CSS to change it, that CSS is not reflected to a screen reader. The screen reader reads just the HTML, not your CSS. So in this way, I think this order makes sense, that this is the heading, then followed by some like a accent or a kind of subtitle, then followed by more paragraph text. So I'll come to my heading, make sure it's H1, then I'll go to the creative thinking, and I'll just make it's not strong enough to be a heading, because it's not a heading to any other thing. So all I'll do is I'll just put the paragraph tag, and in some cases I can now just say maybe that is in this case I'll just leave it as a paragraph tag, and later we can restyle it. So let's see, do they have any styles? Okay, no. So for now there is no styling that affects. Yeah, that's one thing I missed out in the beginning, is that because we already have that, your design system, the first thing I like to do is create global styles. But right now the global styles are not there, so we'll come back to the heading levels later. But let me just go ahead and go through the heading levels, then we'll have to fix the styles. So I'm just going to be changing the headings without considering the styles. So this is the heading. What I'll now do is come to the advanced tab, and you can now change the order to go back to the top. So right now in the DOM, this is the main heading, followed by the creative thinking. That is like an accent or something. Then followed by the paragraph text. Make sure it is paragraph. Okay. We'll go to the next section. In my opinion, the about us is the H2. Then this is supposed to just be like a strong tag, so I'll put it a paragraph, and I could just write maybe strong in it, /strong. Okay. Later we'll style it. Next one is that now we have this section, but the section is not having any heading. So we need some way to describe what this section is. So what I like to do is I will now put a hidden heading to describe that section, so that when a screen reader user lands on that section, they will know what that whole section is all about. So in this case, I think this section is talking about all of our achievements, and I think it could be thought of as a section, a subheading of the about us. So something I can now do is say that about us is the H2. This improving business through strategic partnership is a subsection under this about us. And then this our achievement is another subsection under the about us. So that's something you can think about. So what I'll do is I'll now make this a H3. Remove the strong tag. I think that looks like a better approach. So that's why ideally it is your content creator that will, or like the person who is writing your content, that should describe all of these things in the order of the HTML, not considering CSS. The person should create the content and think about it logically. So, okay, what is the H2? What is the paragraph? What is the H3? What is the block quote? And so on. So in this case, I'll now put a heading for this section. So I'll just add a heading somewhere at the beginning. And don't worry, like I said, I'll style it. So I'll make this a H3, and I'll just say this is our achievements. I hope that's how it's spelled. So then what I'll do is I'll use some CSS to hide it. So it is there in the DOM, but it is only a screen reader user that will listen to it if I cannot make it visual. So what I'll now do is I think there's a class name called, I think it's with Elementor, it's called screen reader only or screen reader text. I can't remember. But I also have another class name I added, which is DDSR only, and that will just hide it basically. So visually it's hidden, but in the DOM it will be there. So we'll keep going. After we come back and then we now change the styles to fit our need. So the next one is our services. So that will be the H2 because it's starting another new section. This is about us, and then the next thing is, after you've known about us, you now need to know what our services are. So our services is another section heading. Then I will make this services we provide. So I can just make this all of this a paragraph, and then these are headings. So, or you can, it all depends on how you can think about it now. So this is some extra text underneath the services we provide. So I'll just say, because it's basically the same, just reiterating the same thing. So I might just say, this is a paragraph. I'll style it later. And this is also a paragraph. Then the next one is our content here. Because this is a H2, the next in line is H3. So we'll come to this web design and we change it to a H3. Hi Anne, thanks for joining in. I will need your advice in the heading structure. So I'll say this is a H3, and I'll do that for the other ones. Ignore the styles. H3 and H3. Then we go to the next section, and this is, so testimonials is different from services. So that means it's starting a new section, the testimonial section. So I'll now make that a H2, and this is just like a subtext under the testimonial. So I'll just simply change that to a paragraph tag or a strong tag, and the other one to be another paragraph tag. Then, so now it's talking about testimonials, and the subsections are, each of them is a new, so we have 3 testimonials, one from Erica, the other one from Michael and Alexander. So these ones can now be headings under the testimonial section. So I will come to this carousel, then edit it. It's still loading. Okay. Then when I edit the carousel, I want to go to the structure, testimonial, and let's change the heading tag. Is it possible? Unfortunately, Elementor doesn't give us the option to change the heading tag in a testimonial. So you may have to use a different widget to create your testimonial, because Elementor doesn't give you any option to change the heading tag. Well, we'll see how it looks like on the front end later. So that means we can't do that. So let's go back. I hope oh, yeah, did they save? I think they saved. Okay. So we were in the testimonial section. The next one is the latest blog. So I'll go to our latest blog, and so we're finished with testimonials. The blog is now a new section. So we'll start with a new heading. So in this case, this will now be the H2 again, the latest blog. This is just a repeat of the same thing. So we can make that a paragraph tag. And this is also another paragraph. Then, because the section is a H2, these blog cards, they are subsections under our latest blog. So we'll go into the template, save, and I'll make sure that the heading follows in order. So since we have a H2, the next in order is the H3. So I'll change the heading to H3, and let's publish it. Save and back. And yeah, that's basically it for the headings. The last section that I like to do is that the footer as well, because these footer headings, they are not direct children of the latest blog or whatever was the last section. So that should start a new section. So what I like to do is I will now go to my footer template, and similar to what I did in the other section is I'll add a hidden text. So I'll say a header, and I'll just call this footer. And basically I'll hide it again. So that should be a H2 to start a new section. This is a new section called the footer section. And I'll just hide it with some CSS. I think the class name was DDCSR only. And that's hidden. So now let's publish it. Make sure the headings now follow in order. So that was the H2. Every heading here should follow in order. So this should be a H3 and a H3. So let's publish. And then we'll preview on the front end. And now we can test it again. So we'll test it again using any of the tools that you have. So I'll test it using headings map. And now you see there is no any error showing, and you can basically look at it visually. You can see, okay, the main topic of this page is called Strategic Thinking, Tangible Results for Businesses. I believe it should be a different name. That doesn't really explain anything. But then let's just assume that that's the H1. And then now we can see, okay, under that one, we now have About Us section. We have our services section. We have the testimonials section. We have our latest blog section. And then we have the footer. So straight away, just from this structure, you can already visually understand what is the entire structure of your page. So now that we are finished with the structure, because I like to start with the structure before I go into the design. So now I know that the structure of the page is explanatory. It explains everything that I have, that we have About Us. Then when there are two things under the About Us, I think this doesn't even sound like a proper heading. This improving business, maybe it's a heading, but basically it doesn't really explain much about what that whole section is going to be about, or the content underneath it is going to about. Because you have to think about it is a heading. A heading means that it is describing what the content that follows it is going to be about. Like I showed you in the W3C documentation, once you see a heading like abstract, you know that the content that follows the abstract is everything that has to deal with an abstract. If you see table of contents, you know that what follows table of contents is everything that has to do with a table of contents. So the heading should describe exactly what is going on in that section of your content, the section of your page. It's not just all about trying to put in keywords everywhere into your page, but those keywords should make sense. They should describe what the content that follows underneath is. Otherwise, you're just giving us some jargons that nobody understands. So now we have finished with the structure. We can now go back and actually start the styling. So one thing that I will show you now, which creates problem with styling, is when you use number one, you've seen, because I used the HTML itself to create the styles. So H1, H2, H3, rather than using CSS. So the problem is that when I now start trying to change the heading, it now breaks the entire styling that I had. But if I had used global styles to create my styles, then I can change the heading tag to anything, but the style will remain the same. So that is something you have to watch out for. That try to not rely on using the HTML to style. Try to use some classes, so CSS. And thankfully, I think with version 4 of Elementor, they'll be able to use global classes that we can reuse. So that will be a good thing to have. So make sure you try to avoid using the HTML to do styles. Try to create global classes and then style those global classes. The other thing to watch out for is the use of pixels. So now let me show you one problem on the site, and that is they are using pixels to structure the site. It might be good for you who can see it visually with your own settings of your page, but for somebody who relies on some extended increased font size on their browser, that will have no effect on the page. So that's why you should avoid using pixels for your font sizes. You can use pixels for your width and other things, but not for your font sizes. So now let me show you the problem. So let's switch back. And basically, now watch this section. Let's say I am visually impaired in a way that I want, like, all my pages, that the paragraph text should be very large. So ideally what I'll do is I'll come to my settings, and then I'll go to appearance, and I will increase the font size to be very large. Now let's go back to the page. And okay, I think I used, okay, yeah. But watch what happens. I put very large. The paragraph text increased in size, but the other one did not change. That was because I used pixels for that value. Whereas for the paragraph, I used rems, I believe. Let's test it out. Let me inspect it. And I'll go to computed. And the font size, I used, okay, oh yeah, because I installed my framework. That's why it overwrote what the template was doing, because by default, let me see if I can deactivate my framework. So I'll just deactivate the plugin core framework. Okay, now let me refresh the page, and now you see everything, because initially I had used my framework and that tries to improve some things, but now see, although I changed the setting to very large, because the template came with pixels, nothing changed. Even if I go down to very small, if I go back, it's nothing changes. So that means you have basically removed my control. And one of the key ideas in web accessibility is that you want to respect the user's preferences. So respect the user's control. Don't take away their only means of control. Don't say you are trying to limit them to your own design, because your design should just be a starting point. The user should have the ability to overwrite your design to fit his own needs. So let's say he is visually impaired or anything, so you should create your design with a nice base standard, but be aware that you should give your users the ability, the choice to be able to overwrite it based on their user preferences. So if the user wants their font size to be massive, allow them to be able to change it to be massive. If the user wants their font size to be super small, because some users actually prefer a super small font, that's how they can see better, especially those ones who have like the tunnel vision, they tend to see things better when they are smaller. So that's why you shouldn't restrict the user. Just use the rem. When you use the rem, what the rem does is that it does that one rem is equal to whatever the user set as his default browser setting. By default, medium is equal to 16 pixels. So that one rem will now be equal to 16 pixels. If the user changes it to very large, which is I think about 32 pixels or something, then one rem will now be equal to double the size. So it will increase the size for that user. So that's your idea, is that start with your own design that you want the user to see for the most users that you have, but then allow them to have the choice to change it using whatever tools that they have. Don't like force them to be stuck to your own standard. Yeah. So how do we do that? Just simply change the font sizes from the pixel values to their rem values, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Just convert it from pixel to rem, or if you want to even go a step further to add some responsive design, then you can use the clamp function. So a lot of people use this clamp function. There are so many different ones out there. I think one of the popular ones is Utopia. I think, let me see if I can find it, utopia.fyi. I'll leave it in the chat. Let's switch. And over there, you can see if you go under type, all you have to do is you define your minimum width for your font size. You define the base font size that you want, that is like 18 pixels, don't worry, everything will be converted to rem. So this is the base font size that you want for that ideal situation. So let's say, for example, this text, you want it to start at maybe 12 pixels and then move up to 20. Don't use 12 pixels. I think use a minimum. The minimum value you should use is at least 16 pixels. That is the best. So let's say you want to start at 16 pixels and then it should go up to 20 pixels. All you have to come here, you say you want it to start at 16 and go up to something like 20. Then you define what is the minimum width you expect as a readable size for your text. You can say, okay, you want to start at 320 pixels. Maybe that is how your phone sizes are. And then you want to go all the way up to 1240 or maybe even 1360, depending on what your design is. But let's just say leave it at 1240. And then all you have to now do is come down to the bottom and you would see the style here. You can now change it, the prefix. So I like to always use my name. So I'll say DD, maybe text. And it will now break it down for you. DD text, _1, and so on. So let me zoom in a little bit. So you can now just copy this file into your custom CSS of your site settings. And then for your font sizes, all you have to do now reference this variable name. I already have one in my website, so I'm not going to do this. But basically, for me, I'm using a tool called Core Framework. So, oh, have I logged out? Let me refresh. Sometimes this, okay, CSS, okay, let me go to, oh yeah, the Core Framework is disabled. That's why I couldn't get it. So let me say, activate the plugins. Oh, what am I doing? Plugin activate. And let me activate Core Framework. That's this one. And then let's refresh the page. And I can now go to my Core Framework. See, now that I've installed Core Framework, it says we structured the page. What just happened? Something broke. Let me see what. Let me go to the plugin folder. I must have installed a plugin that I was not supposed to. Let me see. Accessibility checker, yes. I don't need this. What other plugin do I need? And then under my Core Framework, oh yeah, I was wondering why everything was small, and that's because I changed my font size on my settings to super small. Yeah, very small. I need to go back to recommended, the medium, and now I can refresh. Yeah, so that's why everything. I was wondering what happened to my page, why everything just became so small. Because I tend to use a larger font size. So when I'm working on my own, I tend to even work with the large font size. But since I'm on the live stream, I'm using the, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I missed that. Oh yeah. So yeah, so now we're back. This is how I like to use Core Framework. So the only thing that is missing right now from Core Framework as an integration with Elementor is that Elementor doesn't allow you to add CSS variables for the font colors. So that's the only little thing that is missing. But other things will work perfectly, like the text and other things. So I have set up my typography here. All I have to just do is give it the same way we had in the Utopia. I gave it the naming convention, dd-text. The minimum font size, I said 16. I gave it the scale, same thing that you have here. The type scale and type scale. That's exactly what you have in the Core Framework. So you just set that up and it will automatically create the classes as well as the variables for you. Yeah. Oh yeah, Yeah, because the core framework just allows me to add my CSS variables. That's why I like using core framework. And then you will see how I used it in Elementor now. So let's head over back to my page. So I'll just go to the, let me see, I'm on the wrong thing. Okay, post type, the home page, edit with Elementor. And unfortunately, like I said, nothing is ported in. So it's like double, I'm going to be doing like double work. So I'll go over to my site settings. And the first thing I'll do is create what we call global fonts. So I'll go to global fonts and I'll start describing all of my global fonts. So I'll say, maybe instead of primary, I'll say maybe this is heading extra large or something like that. And then I'll define it. So for that heading, extra large heading, I'll say maybe that's for my H1 or something like that. Or you can just name it based on the HTML elements like H1, H2, H3. I like to use XL, L, and then M and so on. So I'll say for that one, I want the font should be, let me even disable all of these Elementor's Google fonts. So let me go to Elementor settings. I don't like seeing those Google fonts. I think it's under advanced. And let me disable Google fonts. Since I already have my local fonts, save that. Okay. Now, refresh. I don't know if you saw I believe it was Toby, one of his first videos. He showed you how to use global typography and global fonts. So you can go ahead and check his video out. I think I'll leave a link to it in the description somewhere. And it shows you how best to utilize the global fonts. So I'll start with the global fonts. I'll say maybe the first one is called maybe heading 2XL. Let me disable the preview so I can see directly on the page. And I'll say something like, rather than using pixels, I don't like I said, don't use pixels. If you want to use anything, convert that pixels to rems. If you don't want to use like clamp function, just convert your pixels to rems, then set up your fonts for your desktop, your tablet, and your mobile. But for me, I just use the variables from my core framework. So now I'll come to the pencil icon, and this time I'll now say var, VAR, open the regular bracket, double hyphen, and then I'll put the name dd text slash and dash 2XL, close it. Then the line height as well, I also have another variable. Usually your line height, you want it to be either in M's or some other relative units, like I think there's LH and some other units like that. But I have a CSS variable for that. I believe I called it var dd, I think I'll change the name, line height S. I think that's what I called it. Yes. So copy that, and that's what you have to do for basically change all of the pixel related values to rems. Make sure you also check on tablet, make sure there's nothing there. Since I'm using the calc function or the clamp function, I have to make sure that nothing is set for the mobile and tablet. Save that. Go to the second one, I'll say the same thing, heading maybe XL. And this is where the whole, it takes you a long time to do all of these things. So you just, but that's why ideally is as you are setting up your page, you create what they call a style guide page. Let me see if I have one. Let me see, post type, pages, style guide. Yes, I got this one from Angela Bowman. She did a style guide page. I've broken it, but basically it's like this. You have your styles, your primary color, your secondary color, your accent color, and everything. You put them on a single page so you can visually see how they will look in the page when you're not using them in the page. So you create a style guide page like that. You can also check the colors to see what colors work well with the other colors. So that's why I always recommend use a style guide. and then just do your test there. But let's just continue. I'll just do a few. So this one will be var dd text. That will be XL, and the line height will be this. Make sure there's nothing on the tablet. Yeah, it was Angela. She created a style guide, and I just copied her style guide. And style guides are always nice to use. Yeah. Okay, then you also set up, this is heading, so maybe H will be bold. This is one thing I like about some other page builders, is that right now with Elementor, you have to set up everything. So you set up the weight, the size, and everything. But thankfully, I think with version 4, you'll be able to do atomic styling. So you can style just the 700 pixels as one class name. You style the font size as another class name, and then you can just apply the class name without having to apply the font size, because sometimes you may want the text to be big but to have a 500 weight or something like that. So yeah. Okay, yeah, so a good one to remember in case you didn't know. Yeah, so I'll just keep doing that for all of them. Make sure everything is all sorted out. Go to the next one, text. For the text, I think the texts are, yeah, the same Ubuntu. And I'll just change. Ideally, this is what you should do, but I may have to cheat a little bit later just to save time. Then I'll go to this. I have my, just paste my variable name. Instead of 16 pixels, use rems or use clamp functions. So I'll say this is var dd text m. Previously, I was not using the prefix like dd dash, but I now realize that Elementor doesn't use prefix for some of their variables as well, like gap. So when I now try to use my own without the prefix, it got overwritten by Elementor's once, and then so I've decided that all my class names and variable for my utility classes and my variables, I must always add a prefix so that I don't interfere with anyone that comes with a page builder or a plugin or whatever. So that's it. So I save this, and then I'll just put maybe the last one. This will be heading L. Same thing. This time will be var dd text L, and okay, hopefully everything is in order. The only thing I'll add extra is that accent heading. So I'll say accent heading, and I believe, I can't remember what, I know the font family was that. Then the size, I'm just going to say the size was L or XL. I'll change it later. Font weight 400. Transform, capitalize, and line height. Just place my line height. Okay, hopefully it's the right line height. Now let's just go and test. I will change some of these things later, but let's go back. So now that I've created the global fonts, I can now use those global fonts in my typography. So rather than using fixed sizes, I'll go to the global fonts now and use that. So maybe the first one is 2XL. Then, no, that's the body, sorry. The body is just text. Then the H1, I'll say, is the 2XL. Maybe H2, maybe I'll have to do it something bigger. H2 is, okay, I think I may have to do something, okay, 2XL. H3, I'll change some of these things later to match the correct style, but now I'll just start with the L. Okay, let's see. Let's now go back and see what did I miss. Okay, so we'll start with this. I think the size should be a bit bigger, so I'll go to, either I'll go to my H1 or I just create a style first. So H is too small, so let's change a bit and see what the perfect style is. Var dd text 3XL. Maybe that will be better. Yeah, 3XL. And yeah, I can now save this as my heading with 3XL. Great. The other one is the accent heading. Let's see if I do it correctly. Okay. It should have that accent. So it's not using the right font. So let me make sure. Go to my site settings again. And so that's why ideally you start with your style guide before you start actually editing the page. But let me see my accent heading. What did I do wrong? Accent heading. Yeah, should be that. Save. Not sure why it didn't change. Still using the wrong font. Refresh. Okay, yeah, okay. I just needed to refresh my page. Okay, so that's the heading, but I think it's too small. So let's make it bigger. So my accent heading should be slightly bigger. Style. Change the settings. The accent heading should be maybe 2XL. Okay. Save it. And yeah, so that's it. So that now that I have that, I can simply start. Yeah, exactly. I just didn't see that. Yeah, the pixel values. Yeah, like it didn't change again, so I have to refresh the page. Sometimes the styles don't appear. Okay, then yeah, we have it. Then we can now start making all the changes. So this about us, I think it was using the accent heading. So come to my typography, choose accent heading, and then the main heading, change that to, I think, XL. Let's just go XL for now. But you get the point. So just keep doing that. Heading, change, accent heading, the other heading. So that's why you don't rely on the HTML element itself when you're styling. Just use the one that comes with here. Just give them meaningful names that you can easily understand. I think all of them are 2XL, right? Okay, excellent. Let me just copy this and paste the style there. It will put in my global style. That looks smaller. Maybe I'll make it bigger. It looks smaller than normal. Okay, then copy this. Paste that style. Paste the style. Then the other one is this accent heading. Let me copy that accent heading from here. Copy. And then paste it there. Oh yeah, exactly. I actually just copied the templates from somebody, and I can't remember where I got the template from. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be for one live stream, because there's also the colors as well. So I think this is just the final portion that I want to work on, just to show how it's good to use the styles. So yeah, and we have gotten our page back to this similar way it was before, but now I can change. If I decide later that, oh no, this is not supposed to be a paragraph tag, but maybe it's supposed to be a H3, it doesn't really change the style that much, unless other things happen. But you see, okay, I guess it does change something. I forgot to add a color. So the same thing you do with the styles, you also do with the colors, because right now it's just taking colors from somewhere. But instead, let me use the global color, which is text, and that text color too. So in the next live stream, we'll also tackle colors and see, are the colors accessible or not. So yeah, but that's it. That's basically it. Let's go and then we test it out on the front end, and we'll see what our work is so far. So as a recap, we did a few things. The first thing we checked was that we made sure that the language is correct for the page and the title is correct for the page. Then we also checked the HTML to see that the different structure is there. So we have the header, we have the main content area, we have the footer, we have a navigation, and we have all of that structure all set in place. Then after we finished with that, we checked that the skip links take us to the main content area and like are able to skip over any unnecessary area on the page. So that is the next thing we check. Then after that, the ideal thing to do is now go ahead and create your style guide, but we skipped over that today. We did that at the end. Ideally, it's supposed to be at the beginning. You create your style guide for your typography using the rems, because rems can adjust based on the browser settings. Then you also do your colors. Make sure your colors are in order. We didn't touch on that today, but in the next live stream, we'll touch on the colors and see how we can test the colors to make sure that they are accessible. Then, yes, then after that, we were able to check the heading structure and make sure that the headings are in order, because that's also very important. And yeah, that's it for now. So if you have any questions based on these, please let me know in the comments and we'll go from there. In the future series, we'll check things like the images to see that do they have the right alt text, do they need an alt text or not. We'll also check the colors and see, are the colors important, and depending on how the time goes, we might do it in another section where we now test out actual components, things like your tab components, your accordions, and all of those things, because I said from the beginning that when you check your page visually, make sure you note down all of the different components that are there that the user can interact with. So like your buttons, your links, your tabs, your accordions, your carousels, all of those things, you have to note them down somewhere. So once you're finished with the easy part, you can now tackle those complex components. So yeah, thanks very much for joining in today. Please, if you haven't, please do leave a thumbs up so that the YouTube algorithm will be happy with me. And yeah, that's it. So I'll just give it about a minute or two to make sure that I'm not missing any questions. I don't think I missed out any question in the group. If you have any questions, now is the time you can ask before we jump out. Yeah. So I want to say a big thank you to everybody that joined. Aina, Toby, to Anne. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you, Lex. I know you had to jump out at a point. To Jimmy and every other person that came in. Carapos. I am happy you all were able to connect together. So I'll see you all in the next live stream. Bye.